smithing and do all kinds of things.
You even
know?
sell guns.
We even, well...
I'm gonna unravel slave with a weapon. Disarm him, get the guards, disarm him immediately. One of the slaves has a weapon, raise the alarm.
I wanna be crazy, crazy like Alex Jones. And yet having a gumption without presumption to know what's going on. Then I can throw bananas at the global clowns and hear aristocratic moans. I want to be crazy, crazy like Alex Jones. I went looking one day on the internet just to see what I could find. When I heard this talk show maniac just proudly speaking his mind. It was really wild, but the more I heard, it made a whole lot of sense to me. I want to thank you, Alex, for opening my eyes and helping me blind to see. I want to be crazy, crazy like Alex Jones. And yet having that gumption without a presumption to know what's going on. Then I can throw bananas at the global clowns and hear aristocratic moans. I want to be crazy, crazy like Alex Jones. Talking heads on the TV screen with an arrogant sophistication, talking about what's been going on around the world and here in the nation. They all seem to turn like a pack of wolves when Alex goes on the air. In spite of the facts, they launch their attacks, and I just don't think it's fair. I want to be crazy, crazy.
Thank you for joining us. Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you seriously serious? What? I get my bumper stickers, okay? Matthew 27, verse 7. Go there now. Get a cup of coffee. And let me talk to you about the Olympics. This is blowing my mind. I want to thank Louis Troy Viola for getting this information to me. On the official Olympic site, this is the directions you'll get. Head to the Olympic Festival at Potter's Field to take part in all the buzz and excitement of the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Now, let's say it again. This is the official Olympic site. They are saying, head to the Olympic Festival at Potter's Field to take part in all the buzz and excitement of the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Now, the date of the opening ceremony, folks, is significant. It is July 27, 2012. If you take the 27 and the 7, okay, which means, and that's how you do it in England. That's how you do it in a lot of international countries is you put the day, which is 27, then 7, then 2012. Take 27:7 and go to Matthew 27:7. The Bible says, and they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. Why did the chief priest take the pieces of silver and go and buy a plot of land on the potter's field? Because it is a place to bury the condemned. The potter's field was just outside the dung gate. All the broken pots in Jerusalem and the garbage and the dung and different things would be thrown into this field. And a lot of times, strangers or people would just be dead and nobody has no identification. Who is this guy? We don't know. Bury him in the potter's field. They took the 30 pieces of silver and bought a spot to bury Judas Iscariot in. The potter's field. What did he do? He betrayed the Lord. Now, do you believe the Olympics 27-7, the date set, and the Matthew 27-7, and the fact that it says in their program, head to the Olympic Festival at Potter's Field to take part in all the buzz and excitement of the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games? And you look at the date 27/7 in 27:7 Matthew, and it matches what they're saying. But here you're to bury a condemned man, who betrayed Jesus. Here, come to the potter's field and enjoy all the excitement of what? Of the betrayal. Now, Paul, you're just overreacting on these dates. The prophecies are going to your head. You're losing it, dude. What's going on? You're going green with your cups, but you've lost your mind. No, I haven't. Friday, the 27th, is also the 9th of Av, Jewish calendar. On the 9th of Av in 586 BC, the Babylonian Empire went inside Solomon's temple, and they'd already been there since the 7th of Av, and on the 9th of Av, they had desecrated the inside of the temple of God. They brought into the house of God fire from their pagan gods, and they lit them in the temple before destroying it on the 9th of Av, 586 BC. Same day the Olympics starts. But wait, there's more. Then in 70 AD, after Jesus said, behold, as he looked at Jerusalem, he looked at the temple, so there won't be one stone that won't be unturned. In 70 AD, on what? The 9th of Av, the Roman Empire tore down the second temple of the Lord built by King Herod. You say, oh, that was just an accident. It's just weird that both temples destroyed on the same day. But wait, there's more. In 1492, the Spaniards cast out every Jew in the land. On the 9th of Av, they declared it. But wait, there's more. In the Olympic Games of 1972, 11 Israeli soldiers, 11 Israeli athletes were mowed down and executed. You got it. What day of the Olympic Games? The 9th of Av. And now, this year, the Olympic Games in London, England, is starting on the 9th of Av. And guess what they're going to do? Not only are they going to tell you to go down to the Potter's Field and enjoy all the excitement and the buzz of the opening ceremonies of the games, but they're going to light that pagan torch that they've been carrying around the world, and they're going to light it right at dusk, which is the time right in the evening, just after the Sabbath has begun in Jerusalem, which is called the 9th of Av, or the day of fast, where it's a very sacred day of mourning. That very day, the beginning of that Sabbath, they're going to light that Olympic torch, that paganistic symbol, on the 9th of Av. They're buying the Potter's Field. What there is a Illuminati cards that were made back in 1995 with a lot of things in it, like the destruction of the towers, Twin Towers, and different things. But one of the cards in that deck shows Big Ben there in England, blowed up, people running in fear. And in the crowd of the people are 5 distinct individuals with 5 different colored shirts on, and they are the exact 5 colors of the 5 rings in the Olympic logo. You think that this is an accident? You think I went mad? You think that too much preaching has drove me insane? That's what they said about Apostle Paul. They said much studying has drove you mad. No, it didn't. Much studying is how he got the revelation. You can't get revelation unless you got some information from the Word of God. And let me read it to you again. Matthew 27 and verse 5, and he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple. We're talking about Judas Iscariot. To depart, he went and he hanged himself. And the chief priest took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful to put them into the treasury, for it is the price of blood. And they took, here it is, Matthew 27:7, and they took the counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. What's going on in London? Are they going to take the money from the paganistic worshipers? Are they getting ready to invest it in the treasury of London? Is this going to be part of a purchase of a potter's field symbolically? They even named the field the Potter's Field. Head to the Olympic Festival at Potter's Field to take part in all the buzz and excitement of the London 2012 Olympics and the Paralympic Games. The 9th of all, a slap in the face to Israel, and now a slap in the face to Jesus. Are you serious? Are you serious? I love all my friends in England. This ain't about you people, you citizens of England. This is about the new world order, or the beast that shall rise out of the east, as it says in Revelation 13:1. Are you saved? Are you saved? Look at all the signs. Are you saved? Jesus is coming. Are you saved? Are you saved? Are you saved? Look.
Or it's also a sign that if anything should happen at all, any type of strange event, which crimes against humanity, humanity and athletes, it's a crime against humanity, and it would be whoever made the arrangements for this Olympics. Anything should go down, then I guess, if it does, and the details that have just been said by Pastor Paul Begley, other than prophecy, this is called liability, and this shows that it's been staged and planned by the people who run the Olympics. Heads up! Heads up! Nothing better happen down there, or someone is very liable for anything that happens to any of those people. What a liability. Heads up. Heads up. Because it's whoever was in charge of booking this event, and whoever was in charge of promoting, booking, and all that, they are liable. Oh well. I guess he blew that wide open, didn't he? And now the whole world is watching and knows. Look at that. He has 6,708,434 video views. He has 11,100 198 subscribers. So, I better think about that. Someone's going to prison for crimes against the athletes of humanity, if anything should go down. Good call, Pastor Begley. Good call. Hopefully it was in time. And this is Dutchsinse from yesterday. Let's see if we can get it to play. Heads up, storms are coming. There it goes. Let's see if we can make it bigger for you guys. There it goes. Showing you everything that's out there.
Dutchsinse here. 2:08 p.m. Central Time on Thursday, July 26th, 2012. And we're looking at in telecast. I have the Continental Radar View on, turn on the National Weather Service alerts, and this is Titan Storm Tracking. Now, you can see this red triangle indicates a possible tornado detected. That's in the middle of a huge, strong cell thunderstorm outbreak. The National Weather Service, all these dark yellow boxes here, has issued multiple severe thunderstorm warnings and watches, which means either imminent on the ground or going to be developing fairly shortly. Now, these red boxes up here to the north are tornado watches. Again, keep your eyes peeled for possible tornadoes. And then we do have a tornado warning right here, and that indicates a possible tornado detected, and that's northwest of Harrisburg, heading east-southeast towards Scranton, Pennsylvania. So we do have to watch Pennsylvania, New York, going right up through New England, all the way up to Maine, and all the way south to South Carolina. Anywhere in here, we have hail detected, indicated by the blue boxes. We have strong cell thunderstorms, indicated by the green circles, and then we also have tornadoes and damaging winds throughout the northern part of this storm. Now, the rain actually skipped St. Louis earlier. I hope we do get a line of storms here. So far, it's been too dry for it to rain, so anywhere down here, even though it shows, hasn't actually been getting that heavy rainfall that it looks like. But to the east, we have hail, strong cell thunderstorms. Now, down over Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, we have hail detected, strong cell thunderstorms. That extends west through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, strong cell thunderstorms. Now, also, the rotation on this storm up here over, looks like North Minnesota, coming right out of Canada. Let me just let it play through here. You can see which way it's headed. It's headed now due south by southeast, which means that this low pressure system, which contains snow up here near Calgary, is now going to be intersecting with these 100-degree temperatures down here to the south, and you can expect it that these southern states are going to get some fairly severe weather again, most likely tomorrow, once this storm pulls further south. Okay, it's going to tap into the southern flow again and produce the same outbreak, but further south and east, since the center of the storm is coming south and east. Okay, and the whole time I've been talking here, tornado detected, and let's zoom in and see what's going on down here. A whole line of strong cell thunderstorms and hail detected, and that tornado just popped off. The National Weather Service just moved the warning box, which means that that rotation or that funnel cloud is actually moving, and it's moving, looks like, to the east. So it'll go north of New York, but not by far. I would say that New York, down through New Jersey, down through Virginia, for sure, will be getting these strong cell thunderstorms into tonight. And then the southern flow, that will take care of the southern states tomorrow, if not late tonight. If you get any confirmation stories on the tornadoes, or the hail, or the damaging winds, let me know, folks. But you can see it, you know your areas where you live. Be prepared for hail, be prepared for that damaging winds, and also be prepared for severe cells into tonight when most people are going to sleep. Much love, folks.
And that was Dutchsinse from yesterday, but it does affect us today and tomorrow. Alrighty then. I'm giving you everything that's out there for right now.
Decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back, and we are joined with John. We're talking about the engineer that's done the miracle of making the diatomic Edgar Cayce nutriodine, and it is the most important single nutraceutical and NUTRIMEDICAL. And just to review what it does, I just took actually a great big dropper full and put it in my forearms. Believe it or not, in less than 30 seconds, it's gone. It's gone. It's like, where's the stain? Even the small areas of stain is just literally disappearing as I'm speaking. Well, the reason is your body can absorb seaweed, which is a salt, which is iodine salt. It's one iodine atom. But diatomic iodine doesn't share its electrons. It's not a salt. It's what the thyroid has to do to convert iodine, whether it's iodized salt or iodine in any other form of food, into a diatomic form. It coats your cells of your body along the phospholipid layer to prevent pathogen entry. It's the cofactor, along with selenium and other trace elements, to convert T4 to T3, which is the active thyroid hormone. T4 is a prohormone. Your thyroid gland makes the prohormone, and most of it's peripherally converted in an as-need basis in the brown fat, now called the beige fat also, which both burns off fat calories. The muscles, the brain, the other organs, each have their own control system locally for determining how much T3 they want. In other words, it's the choke for the mitochondria. Now, what happens when you take in what I call, we were talking about this in the break with John, the Germans don't like to swim in Auschwitzwater, they call it, because you have chlorinated water, so they've ozonated water. I have an ozonator on my pool. And if you were to swim in my pool, you'd say, there's no chlorine smell here. Why is that? Well, I put nutriodine in there, which is natural to the body and works with the mitochondria. But when you put in chlorine, it displaces the iodine off the thyroid hormone. It literally jams up the T3. You have not T3I, you have T3Cl. Or if you have fluoridated water, because you're drinking fluoridated water or food that's grown in fluoridated water, you have T3FL, which is the most electrophilic, the nucleophilic molecule, which is basically going to bond so closely to your thyroid hormone, it's going to completely block it up. That's why a lot of, we call functional mitochondrial deficits and functional TRS, or thyroid resistance syndrome, is simply due to xenoestrogen toxins. That's why the xenoestrogen detox and NutriDefense are so important, and our Green Tea Supreme for pulling those up. But the most important thing is nutriodine. Now, nutriodine helps you also with a process called mitochondriogenesis, making new mitochondria. Now, different organs like your brain, how many mitochondria do you think are in one large Purkinje cell in your cerebellum?
No idea.
Hundreds of thousands. In one heart cell, there can be tens to hundreds of thousands in a heart muscle cell, because the cardiomyocyte can be very large. And what happens is they hypertrophy. They just get bigger, and then they kind of split their bonds, but they're actually, we call a large cell. And most people don't realize that many of these cells are what's called polyploidal. They actually have more than one copy of the genes. Most people don't realize that there are natural polyploidal tissues in your body. Neurons are one of those tissues that actually is polyploidal. Did you know that?
No.
There's more than one copy of your genes in the brain cells. Which is why there are also neurocytes that actually can differentiate. But all those processes, including stem cells, require T3. T3 is like the elixir of life. Now, the thing that releases T3 in the brain is called TRH. We call it thyroid-releasing hormone, or proteolin. The T3 actually should have other labels to it, because in the small bowel, the identical same molecule is called the IRP, or insulin receptor peptide. It also is what's called the autophagic peptide, which means it tells your cells make new organelles, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum, the centrioles that help the cell divide, the metaphase plate to make the genes separate. Literally every structure in your cell and body is regulated by TRH, which is berberstatin, But you have to have NUTRIMEDICAL in order for this to work. Now, our soils have been depleted of many minerals. The worst, of course, are iodine. That's why you can see the Great Shield around Canada and Ohio and the northeastern United States. There's a great depletion in the soils there of iodine in the soil and selenium. So food grown there is very iodine deficient, and it causes goiter. Now, what goiter does is it can cause a syndrome called cretinism, where babies basically have less neurons and are much smaller. If you start giving children with autism, Down syndrome, post-traumatic anoxic syndromes, like all kinds of disorders, they're going to start showing recovery just by adding NUTRIMEDICAL alone. We've had cases where people just started giving their kids NUTRIMEDICAL, and they started doing better in school, and they've had autism and other problems. It's because the mitochondria get pumped up.
Something here. On the 24th, Harvard released a study that says Harvard study finds fluoride lowers IQ.
Right now,
published in the federal government journal.
That's really good because
that,
this low raises
children born in areas with high fluoride content have lower IQs than those who are born in low fluoride areas.
That's a very good study you mentioned there. Now, they had the Barefoot Doctors in China did a study that was released about 6-7 years ago. Yeah. And they'd done this over a period of around 20 years, and what they found is in areas where they fluoridated water in China, they had no children with an IQ over 170. And only in the rural areas where there's no fluoridation do they find children with IQs over 170. And it is entirely related to the amount of nascent iodine in the environment that the body can bioconvert, that the mother can absorb. And that's one of the reasons why I believe the firstborn child has 7 points higher IQ, not because they're so much better or God's going to bless them with a higher IQ. They grabbed the mother's reserve sources of diatomic iodine, which she's been sequestering up to have a baby. And the second and third children don't get that first lion's share.
Right.
And if there's a separation of our child, if there's a separation of so many years between children too, the mother builds up more resources. Also, one of the things that people find anomalous is they wonder why they think women are getting more genetic defects when they get older. Not true. In fact, it's just that the child's more likely to survive because the mother has better nutrition. So a child survives in a mother because they're 42 or 44 if they're pregnant, not because those eggs are damaged, so they've had more damage to their DNA, but because the mother's nutrition is so much better. A child with Down syndrome would be miscarried in a younger woman, and it'll be carried in a woman 42 because they actually, believe it or not, are healthier. And they build up more resources, okay? So it's the opposite of what you think. There's two peaks of Down syndrome, early teenage years, when they're going to be particularly healthy and they're just coming out of there. And then, of course, in the women in their 40s because they build up their resources for nutrition. So they had a late onset pregnancy. So NUTRIMEDICAL, nowadays, what's going on, the largest public health danger in the world is mitochondria. If somebody said, Dr. Deagle, I want you to give me what's the biggest health danger on the planet, I'd say mitochondrial damage caused by every convergent toxin. Xenotoxins, which are primarily chloride, fluoride, and bromide. Radiotoxins like radioiodine-131. Heavy metals that deplete glutathione peroxidase, SOD1, manganese SOD1 to protect the mitochondria. All of these damage mitochondria. When mitochondria are decreased, you get NK killer cell activity reduced, so you can't fight infections. You get reduced firing patterns of neurons in the brain, so you activate cortical. I call it the zombie apocalypse. You end up with decreased developmental, you get developmental delays, delayed myelination, delayed organ development. You increase the number of trisomic individuals and miscarriages in every species. And it's not good. I mean, people say, oh yeah, well that'll just increase mutations, so we'll evolve faster. No, you won't. You'll see that most people will become functionally sterile. We have large numbers of miscarriages, and that's why even protecting against the damage from Fukushima so you can have a normal baby now, take NUTRIMEDICAL. It's part of our pregnancy protocol. If you want to prevent dementia, those neurons are not dying. They're going to senescence. They're basically metabolically being damaged. Now they can't even metabolize sugar, so they need short-chain fatty acids like MCT, coconut oil, etc., which we have our Coconut Pure. Where I'm working on a new formula for those things, for senescence, for seizure disorders, for autism, and for cancer. And that formula will be coming out probably later this fall or early 2013. That formula is in. So NUTRIMEDICAL is very, very unique. It kills also all known pathogens. It kills Lyme disease, Chagas spirochetosis. It kills babesiosis or lichiosis, tuberculosis. viruses, bacteria, fungi, mycobacteria, stealth pathogens, which basically in every tissue and every organ, whether it's chronic disease like vascular disease or cancer, you find three things present. Hypoxia and acidity, which I say always go together, stealth pathogens, and and heavy metal toxins. And in order to have the energetics to even remove the toxins, you need to have nutriodine. To kill the pathogens, you need nutriodine. And to build new mitochondria so the tissues are in a high redox state to prevent cancer and vascular disease, you need nutriodine. So, you know, a lot of people that are getting vascular disease in their third, fourth, fifth decades, they're all functionally hypothyroid, insulin resistant, syndrome X, all tied right back to the same basic problem, which is why nutriodine is so essential. And we have people start on it.
Get it, and they need to get it in a hurry.
Core body temperature goes up, blood and insulin resistance goes down, blood pressure, vessels relax, total stem cells, healing tissues increases, body detoxes, halides, cells regenerate, people start functioning better, and slowing or reversing the clock. We have all kinds of specials for nutriodine. Again, remember now, the 1 ounce bottle is what we have. We do not have a 4 ounce. We're talking about doing a larger size. No, I don't think they'll break easily, and if you spill a 1 ounce, these are by far the thing you want to travel with. They're very resilient. We have had no breaks now in years. Do call us 888-212-8871, 888-212-8871. Back in a moment with Hour 3. You don't want to miss it.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you...
Well, I left that in because it was very interesting. Found out a lot of things I didn't know. Hopefully it wasn't too technical for a lot of you out there. I think most of you got the gist of some of the medical news out there. And as soon as the commercial's over, we're going into the NUTRIMEDICAL report, Hour 3, Earth Changes. And it took about 4 hours. So this show took more than that. You're gonna enjoy this show, hopefully, and a lot of information in it. A lot of information today. So I'm splicing together the best of the best. The heads up in the medical world, the heads up in the weather, the heads up, the best of the best YouTube and beyond. You know, it's just a giant heads up today, and hopefully you will enjoy this. I'm waiting for the commercial to end so we can continue. Nope, it's going to be a while. There's going to be a lot of commercials. So this portion of the video, you don't have to stare at the wall, stare at the screen. There's going to be a lot of blank spots in it because I can't really run the commercials. So hopefully you will enjoy this. And just hang in there, just like, bear with me, just like as if this was a radio program, which it is. It's the Genesis Communications, Dr. Bill Deagle. And here we go.
Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report, and we have John Moore and Ann Morrison joining us. John, I'm sure it's been a very intense couple of weeks. You've got a lot of radio you've done recently dealing with the 4 different sources of information dealing with the approach of the Nemesis dwarf star. We call Nibiru the dwarf star.
Nibiru!
I've been researching the last few weeks, and there's kind of 2 conclusions that come. It's either number 1, it's true, or number 2, it's a very important what we call red flag information op. Give us your analysis of what's going on as to what you're seeing and what kind of independent sources you're having on this, because we know there's no doubt that, and I've researched it for years, and we have other experts, that there is an approach of a dwarf star. My general feeling is that it's not going to happen as early as this time window because I haven't had corroboration, but I know it's coming. And then when I see all this corroboration happening of all these different sources, this is definitely a coordinated leak of information at the very least, either by our intelligence or foreign intelligence agencies, and then you have to ask why.
Well, that's true, and they're not getting, if it is intentional, they're not getting very much bang for their buck, because less than 1% of the adults in this country have access to the information that we put out on our alternative media outlets. So if it is intentional, they're not getting very much bang for their buck.
And even if they do, the only percentage of those actually, they think it's bizarre entertainment. They don't believe us. They think we're all on day pass. They think we're on day passes, or we're crazy, or we make these up because we have kind of like a strange kind of control freak mind where we want to kind of tell people bizarre things because it's kind of like our shtick. And they don't realize we're actually patriots trying to prepare the population for any kind of thing in a timely fashion, which might be a year early, or 2 years early, but it's better than being a day late.
Well, anyway, getting back to the story at hand, beginning on July 10th, I got word from two independent sources, one earlier in the day and then one later in the day. The first source is a Department of Defense spouse who attended a briefing for spouses of men and women connected to continuity of government contingency planning, which is, once again, maybe 1% of the military and Department of Defense personnel. At the briefing, they were told about Nibiru, the 10th planet, and shown a map very similar to the map on my DVD, Global Warming, what the government's been telling you, showing flooding of all coastal areas, and told that they would be put on standby to be evacuated, and they might get as much as 2 weeks' notice. They may not. Our consensus among the men I work with is that this kind of briefing would not be given a year in advance or 6 months in advance. More likely, 30 to 90 days would be the more likely scenario. Later the same day, I got confirmation from a person inside the Department of Homeland Security, pretty much going along with and verifying what the first witness was saying, with no further detail. Then another co-host on Republic Broadcast, Mr. Mike Harris, he has his own two private sources, one of whom is a intelligence officer, a high-ranking decision-making intelligence officer with a foreign intelligence service, who gave two specific dates. This is the only source for the two specific dates, right. August 17th and September 26th. The source said that August 17th would be the closest passage for the Nibiru going into our solar system, and September 26th for the closest passage coming out. And I've got conflicting reports about how authentic that is, but that is what my source, who is a private trusted source, by the way, said. And then Mike has a second source who went on to not give no dates, but basically verify the close approach of Nibiru, Planet X-Wormwood, the dwarf star, or whatever people want to call it.
Yeah.
So that's four independent sources who don't know each other, all very much saying the same thing, with the exception of the one who's giving specific dates. Exactly. It's been a whirlwind of activity. I've been on the telephone all day long, answering emails all day, doing a lot of guest appearances on radio shows. And what we're encouraging people to do is to educate themselves, reach their own decision about what they will or will not do, and then go ahead and take whatever the action they think is appropriate and responsible.
Well, let's look at X date. We're not going to put a date, whether it's 2 months or 2 years or 10 years from now. This is what is going to transpire, and it's based on the Bible, and if you say converge the biblical facts with the astronomical and the other facts, here's where we're facing. We're going to face, at some future date, the release of supervolcanoes, and the Vieques Island is going to go. We talked about this before the show, that every 300 to 500 years, the Cascadia subduction zone off of Washington State and Oregon releases a tsunami that's 300 to 500 feet every 300 to 500 years. Not thousands of years, but every 300 to 500 years. We know that the largest, we call super tsunami, that struck the west coast of North America was 550,000 years ago, when a volcanic island in the Hawaiian chain broke off and fell into the ocean and created a tsunami 1.5 miles high that struck over 500,000 years ago. We know that Vieques probably knocks off pieces of chunks of material that literally creates tsunamis that are on the order of, say, 1,000 or 2,000 years. These things are not, like, impossible to happen in our day, and we've been monitoring, and have British scientists as well as American monitoring the actual sliding of the rock face, and all they need is steam between the rock face there and increased volcanism, which is now creating a whole new island near El Hierro, just south of it, So we know that El Hierro is going to break off. The Tsunami Research Center in Zurich, Switzerland, these are hard-nosed scientists. The Research Center in San Jose, California have all said they've done their own simulations, computer modeling, and with supercomputers, and they know that this is a grave danger. Now, on top of that, we also know that our potential enemies, Russia, have tsunami weapons off the east and west coast of the United States, and have had them since the Cold War. They have a chain of nukes across the coast that could create a tsunami. Not that they'll do it, just like we have a gun to their head, they have a gun to our head. And one of those guns may be either a cruise missile or a well-placed micro-nuke down there near the El Hierro Island, and that's all you need to do to increase volcanism to cause that to have plausible deniability and have it go off.
Right.
I'm just putting all this in the mix because we don't have all the answers, but I can tell you at some point in the future we're going to have a magnetic pole shift and a destruction of the crust of the Earth, and which is called the lithosphere, and the mantle. That crust and mantle shift will probably move the North American continent around 20 degrees or around 1,200 miles south. So the equator will pass through Cuba. And when that happens, we're going to be seeing major tsunamis around the coastal areas on the planet. But the biggest problem we're going to have is the bulging of the ocean. As you move south toward the equator, the ocean bulges, and the sea level rises not because so much the continent is subducting, but because the ocean bulges because of gravitonic effects. So
right,
the further north you have...
disrupted. That bulge gets disrupted, that's where the flooding comes from.
Right, so flooding happens just because of the bulge disruption. So the main thing is when you talk about coastal flooding, all you need, even without talking about the glaciers melting and global warming, all you need to do is move the North American continent 1,200 miles south, and much of the coastal areas will have massive flooding going quite a ways in. And you may have, because you're talking on the east coast of only 100 to 300 feet above sea level, if you had a 100-foot surge in water or 200 feet surge, you could easily have flooding of 200 miles in on the east coast. Now, on the west coast, it's different geography here, which is really interesting. There's only parts of the coast that are actually, when you go within actually a mile or two of the coast, you're talking about 500 to 1,000 feet. We're at 1,000 feet right here at 7 miles from the coast in California, because this is very, very ancient. It's a subduction zone where the Pacific plate is going under the California plate. The most likely thing to happen in the west coast is that the west coast will be broken up into a series of peninsulas and islands. And there's natural breaks that you can actually predictively map that eventually, whether it's thousands of years or not, or hundreds of thousands of years, that islands and peninsulas will dot the west coast, which was the former California.
Right.
That's what's likely to happen. In fact, if you actually track the area where we are, which is in Southern California, which is North County, San Diego, we're on a blue granite mountain, and it's not going down. We're not going to be hit by a tsunami that's going to go over. But what's going to happen is that island is actually tracking. They've actually had geologists track it on its. If it tracked on its normal speed, I think it's in 10,000 years. It'll actually be off the coast of Vancouver. Or 10, or
I think you better. If you're going to be on an island, you better get yourself a canoe.
Yeah, so I don't think I'll be around at that time, or if I am, I'll be a different kind of being.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the fact. Is better be prepared. Things are going to happen, but we know that this object is coming, and there's lots of corroboration now. My guess is it's going to be a little later than this summer, but you better prepare now with food, air, water, and etc.
Well, we prepare with food, air, and water. Wow. Well, we're just waiting for the commercial to end so I can turn the sound back up. And this is this is going to take me almost all night to put together. So this is going to be a good one. Oh yes. And I'll post this when I'm done as soon as I can. And I probably won't do the Saturday report till very late in the day or night, because there usually isn't a lot of news on Saturday for some reason. And just go ahead and listen to this like just a radio program. You don't have to stare at the screen. There's nothing to see. and get whatever you need done while you're listening to this. And it just amazes me how smart Dr. Deagle is. And that's why I ran a little bit of part 2, so you can hear. You can just hear how educated, and now he's talking about Nibiru, so heads up! It does exist. August 17th or September, or later in September. I know they're seeing it down south of us, in the southern hemisphere, and I just hopefully the naysayers will see it here, the northern hemisphere, quite soon.
Wide. All right.
Nope, still a commercial. Alrighty, we're waiting.
Visit him.
Oh, not yet. Should be back any minute. Now turn it back up and then you can go about whatever you need to do.
Building the immune.
Nope. Bear with me.
This is us at Hemp U.
Nope.
Eating, diet, to wellness. On his dairy.
Well, I hope everyone's having a wonderful late Friday evening. We're going into Saturday now. Let's see if he's back.
3 groups of live.
Nope.
Organic stuff. 360.
Are you tired of searching
And
for
we're
Great
back.
Talk Radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back. John, just to fit in when Ann's going to kind of when we get her line back, there's a nearest object about 3.2 million miles from Earth. It's about, I think, 18, we call moon to Earth diameters away, 3.2 million miles. And it's a pretty big object. It's 3,000, I think 3,000 meters across. That's big. It's big enough that actually, if that hit the Earth, that would be an extinction level event. And that's pretty darn close. What's likely to happen is we're going to see things happen, and I'm not going to put a date on it, but we're going to see things happen such as asteroid storms, things like the Bible, where we talk about great fervent heat from the sky and red dust and comet and asteroid storms. These things are going to happen, and I want you to kind of pop in and tell us all about this large nearest object that's traveling about 18 Earth to Moon diameters. 3,000, I think, meters across. It's whipping across the sky, I think, 40,000 miles an hour.
Right. Well, I do have a private contact at JPL. I'll be attempting to contact over the weekend and see if there's any inside information that's not being released to the public.
Yeah.
And if there is any, and I get my hands on it, I'll certainly report to you next week on what I find out.
Well, what they told us in Space Command is that they're monitoring all these objects right down to the size of pencil lead, and we have trillions of dollars of hardware up there to stop these nearest objects from striking the Earth or changing their orbital pathway by pushing them away. And that project is far more advanced than what people think. Our U.S. Space Command is very, very advanced, and all of these objects are being pushed out. Also, we're trying to even move satellites so they don't get hit by objects. So when the Chinese blew up that satellite a few years ago, created hundreds of thousands of new space-based, high-speed projectiles. It was very stupid. and it created a big problem I call the shards of death. You'd either try to put something into orbit or maintain it in orbit without being hit by one of these objects, because something the size of your thumb can puncture through one of these spacecraft and destroy a very expensive satellite or imaging
just
system.
like being hit by a bullet. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, Ed, what can you tell us about this object?
The Jet Propulsion Laboratory Near Earth Object Program has an animated Java applet, and you can put in 2012 space Delta Alpha 14, I'm sorry, and it'll draw you a picture of the solar system with and they have lines that show the orbits of the planets, and they list, they give the names of the planets, so it's pretty easy for a layman to read.
Right. And
then they superimpose the orbit of the near Earth object. In this case, it's 2012 DA14, and they show when it's below the ecliptic of the solar system and when it's above it. And they show, and then there's a place where you can move the near Earth object on a timeline. So what I do is I get in there and I move it until it's as close to Earth as it will be. And it's at a point, at one time that point was 17,000 miles. It's now 5,000 miles as of 2 days ago.
5,000 miles where?
Well, as it's 6 months out before it'll be that close. And
you're talking about 5,000 miles to Earth?
Yes, to the surface of the Earth.
No.
Yeah.
You're kidding. That's
no,
a really. Okay, now, John, you're the expert on this. They say you don't count the bullets that whiz, right? In the military. Yeah, I'm sure you learned that as Special Forces. This is a bullet that's going to whiz past the Earth. If you get an object 3,000 meters across at 5,000 miles, that's like going to give you a haircut. If you had a bullet, that's crazy. 5,000 miles?
That's crazy close.
It'll be like the Tchaikovsky event in Siberia in 1908, and it'll absolutely destroy an area the size of the country of Luxembourg.
Well, here's what happens. You get a debris field. Let's say that this is, think of it as a teardrop, and there's a plume around it of particles and dust and other things. And this is coming in at, say, 35 to 40,000 miles an hour. Let's say some of those particles that are coming along with that large chunk of 3,000 meters is actually, let's say, 10 meters, 20 meters, size of a refrigerator, size of a bus. And it's kind of traveling along with it before and after, and there's a tail of this thing, right? It's likely that part of that tail or part of that corona around it is going to pass not 5,000 miles, but maybe 200 miles or 300 miles. If it starts getting trapped in the atmosphere pulls it down, and then it explodes, and you get a plasma explosion in the upper atmosphere at hundreds of thousands of degrees. That plasma explosion was happening at Tunguska because it came in such an obtuse angle that when it came into the Earth, it actually exploded high above the area of Siberia, causing that explosion that literally flattened hundreds of thousands of square miles of forest. So it was a very, if you want to call it, glancing blow by a large asteroid that caused that event. So this could cause an asteroid-like event like Tunguska.
Yes, that's what
What date are they looking at for this object to pass?
Oh, but the other thing is the condition is at a number 4, and that means the uncertainty is great. The uncertainty in their calculations.
Well, I'll tell you what
they were. February 15th to 16th. Right now it's 7th.
Well, that's my birthday, so my 61st birthday is I can look up in the sky and say, "Hey God, I can hear the whizzing sound. It's not the Armageddon yet." Oh, gee, that's bizarre. This is a time literally that people need to realize. It says men's hearts will fail for fear what they see in the heavens, and you can go on these websites to see. One of the biggest complaints I'm sure you hear, John and Ann, is you hear, "Oh, we're conspiracy theorists. Why do we think these things? We must be crazy. Are we on day passes? Why do we do this?" I'm thinking, with God's help, and you got to put that first, and with our determination to ask the right questions and seek the truth, the honest truth about whether things are going bad, whether it's this attack that was diverted by Israel 2 days ago, going to attack the chemical munitions plants in Syria. Things are nuts. And they're so crazy that if you start delving into this and you don't even see the spiritual side, and That's why we talk to agnostics and atheists and people that just don't want to go beyond that, and they just want to think, oh, it's just stupidity, and people are evil because they're selfish. No, there's a level to this on the scientific, technical, and the spiritual side that people can't handle. And that's why I think part of the reason is people aren't ignorant because they're stupid, they're ignorant because they're fearful. They actually are purposely cowards, and they won't ask these questions because they're afraid where it will take them. It's just like the questions about this guy Holmes. You start asking questions like some of these journalists, like on Fox News, I think Ohio, and they start asking questions, and you don't have to have all the facts in front of you, but you ask questions and say, this doesn't compute. Where did he get all the money for this armaments? Where did he get all the training for putting these booby trapping? It took 2 days to remove them from his apartment. You know, why is the government not warning the people about Fukushima? Why are they doing a war game today, in the last 4 days, in Tokyo? And they've already stated, this is the U.S. government, that within 4 years they expect a massive evacuation of Tokyo because of a super earthquake. That's their public statement in the U.S. military.
Right, right.
I mean, we didn't invent this. We're just taking regular news media, and then we have some other sources that corroborate it, and sometimes the only thing we can do is ask really good questions like scratching our heads. August 17th coming in, September 26th. But I can tell you, there's no doubt in my mind, I've had sources now for over a decade or more, and you've had them too, that this object is coming in, and there's a lot of debris with it.
You're right. It's coming. Yeah. It may or may not be August 17th, but it's coming.
Right. It's coming. And the other thing people should understand, there's a big debris field, and this giant asteroid, 3,000 meters across, is going to give us a haircut on February 15th, my birthday, 2013. That one, casting 5,000 miles in the earth with a large margin of error. Whoa. That, I'm glad I'm sitting down.
Well, we're at commercial break again. And as soon as we get to the part that I already pre-recorded, I'll upload this. Wow, many things are happening. I just want to get this out to you guys, because it's better to be forewarned and prepared than to be just not knowing and gawking at it as it comes in, frozen with fear. At least you already are prepared. You know, that's all you can do. See where we're at.
$9.
Well, we're waiting. My goodness. This is going to be an extremely long show, but I think it's one of the most informative shows I've done in a long time. Lots of variety here. Lots of good information. This is the biggest heads-up show I've done. Maybe I can, with so many different factors, maybe I can just put the name of this show as A Real Big Heads Up Must See. Oh yes.
Or save on our 3.
Oh, still commercial. I might be cutting this off as soon as it comes back on, because I already pre-recorded a part of it. And I'm going to edit it all together. And then it takes a while for that video editor to upload all this.
It gives you 2,000.
Nope. We're standing by. I could fill it in with the news, but I already did the news. So, oh well. All the pets are asleep. And it's still real hot in here. My goodness.
Fair.com.
Nope. See how hot it is. Oh my goodness. It's like over 80. It's over 85 degrees in my place.
First, we stay
At about almost 2 in the morning. It's very hot. I don't know why. It's probably harder than what they're reporting then on the news. Heads up, Central Florida. 85 degrees at almost 2 o'clock inside my place. Very strange.
Killa has been.
Wow. Can't really turn on the air right now or you won't be able to hear anything but a big rumble. Let me see if he's back yet.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Welcome back, and we're joined by Robert Felix and Ann Morrison. And just want to wrap up again, this object is 2012 DA-14. If you put JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, NEO, near-Earth objects, you can go to what's called the database for small body database browser. And if you have the Java applets, you can actually see the projected orbit. You've done this analysis, which is repeatedly being recalculated, and now with a larger error margin, it's going to pass on my birthday, February 15th, at 5,000 miles above the surface of the Earth. With a fairly large error, it's the size of the object that probably passed to the Earth that caused the Tunguska disaster in Siberia that flattened 100,000 square miles of forest, probably equivalent to 100,000 Hiroshima bombs is what it's equivalent to, 100,000 Hiroshima bombs equivalent. So that's pretty big. It's larger than any of the current conventional nuclear explosions. And also, when these objects pass the Earth, they can release plasma, because this is the, thunderbolts of the sky. You talked about this, Robert, and I'd like you to kind of expand on that.
Well, yeah, Thunderbolts of the, I think it's Thunderbolts of the Gods.info. It's not my website, but
yeah.
But they do talk about the electric discharge that could occur if an asteroid or some sort of heavenly body comes close to the Earth. In fact, they think that's what a lot of the holes that have been scratched into the ground are caused by is those kind of electric discharges, because the entire universe is electromagnetic. And you mentioned
you're talking about the Carolina Bays. In other words, the Carolina Bays are caused by.
Exactly. Yeah. The Carolina Bays are there's 2 million holes been pounded into the ground in the United States alone, and these holes range anywhere from a few acres in size up to 6 miles wide. Yeah. I sure wouldn't have been wanting to stand at ground zero, but
let me explain one of the weapons that America has, and I was told this when I had my clearance at Space Command. We have what's called a plasma death weapon that Nikola Tesla developed, and his plans were later on actually deployed, and America has these weapons. They can create 100 megaton explosion over every city or town anywhere in the world in a matter of minutes by plasma interferometry in the upper atmosphere. And what that means is they can create a plasma of hundreds of millions of degrees over an area that can cause an explosion of the upper atmosphere. If you superheat the upper atmosphere to 100 million degrees, you have an explosion, because what happens with a nuclear bomb is it's not the bomb that causes the explosion. It's the superheating of the air by X-rays. The X-rays superheat the air to hundreds of millions of degrees in picoseconds, and that's what causes the explosion. It's superheating air. So they can do that without a bomb. Now, this can happen naturally, and what you're saying is when these objects are coming in, they not only discharge plasma, but they can cause a plasma-type explosion that can create the Carolina Bays all over the planet. And the evidence isn't just an impact, but a plasma explosion occurring in the upper atmosphere.
Exactly. And, I write about that a little bit about that in Magnetic Reversals.
Ah. What's going on? It just cut off. I wonder if it's going to come back on. Stand by. We'll check this out. Just one moment.
In Evolutionary Leaps, I do have one chapter called Tunguska, and then I have a second chapter called hundreds of thousands of Tunguskis. And you
Right.
just used those words, hundreds of thousands of Tunguskis. But yes, I think that could happen, and you'd be having hundreds of thousands of ear-shattering, radiation-spewing nuclear blasts exploding around the globe.
Right.
That's what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, when this is also happening, this is happening when we're also having a magnetic reversal occurring, and the magnetic field is getting weaker and weaker, protecting the Van Allen radiation belt. Now, Van Allen was an interesting character, and he did a lot of work with the military. They actually put a bomb up in the upper atmosphere that exploded, and there was radiation there for 10 years afterwards, so they couldn't do any exploration. That Van Allen radiation belt means there's relatively low radiation until you get to this radiation belt around the Earth, acting like a, if you call a force field around the Earth, to allow blocking cosmic rays, X-rays, and background cosmic and solar radiation. And if you have a major plasma explosion, it can actually shatter or destroy or disrupt, at least temporarily, that layer. Could you talk about that, Ed? Because I think some large explosions like this could potentially, at least temporarily, disrupt the normal radiation belt that protects our planet as well as our magnetosphere.
Well, that was first discovered when they, during the first part of the space program, when they started shooting astronauts into space, and they discovered that they'd lost communication with them,
right.
And they discovered the Van Allen radiation belt at that time.
Yeah. Yes, they had used 3 different communication systems to communicate with the astronauts that went to the moon.
Yeah, with those.
Yes, they had used 3 different communication systems to communicate with the astronauts that went to the moon.
Yeah, with those. Yeah, that was when they found it. And up to that time, we hadn't realized that we could lose communication with the astronauts. We just thought that, you know, it would take longer because they're getting further away. There would be a time lag. To come to find out, we couldn't hear them at all. Well, that radiation belt does protect the Earth, and you know, it absorbs. What happens is when the sun sends a flare out, it brings in UV, and the UV interacts with the particles in the Van Allen radiation belt, and you know, nuclear daughters are formed from those radioactive elements. So it absorbs the UV radiation as it interacts with those radioactive elements.
Yeah, it causes transmutation of elements. So, Richard, you know, Robert, what we're dealing with now is the climate change is starting to really pick up a pace now. We know that under-oceanic volcanism, and you have one of the first reports you have here is that scientists shoot holes in the NASA Greenland hysteria. Talk about this, because this is important that people understand. There's people like in Australia, where it's, I call the template nation. We've got Julier Gillard and the Green Party going crazy down there, and there's a lot of Aussies that listen to the show. And Julier and the Aussie maniacs of the Green Party are trying to tell them they're one of the coldest months on record in Perth, which is usually very nice there in the wintertime. It's very mild. We have the craziest climate going on down in Australia that they've ever seen. And they're trying to tell them that if they reduce carbon footprint that they're going to save the planet, which is a total lie. They're closing down coal plants, they're losing jobs, they're actually increasing the cost of food and energy and everything. And this is a model that you don't want to do when you're approaching an ice age and you're approaching climate shift and major crop failures around the world because of all the climatic and the geological changes that are occurring and the atmospheric changes that are occurring because we're moving to a different area of space, an area of space where volcanism, extreme weather, and now, of course, we have the death of the loop current. All these combined means we're going to have major famines, major increased levels of high-energy ultraviolet radiation. That's why we're seeing record levels this summer, 11, 12, 13. You know, craziness. But we're moving into an ice age, and the Gakkel Range, we've talked about this before, and you're one of the first to notice it, is a volcanic mountain range longer and higher than the Swiss Alps in the Arctic Ocean underneath the ice shelf in the Arctic. So we're saying, so talk about this, because this scientist thing, shooting the holes, is really important.
Well, yes, because NASA, you know, you're talking about what's going on in Australia, but look at the United States. NASA, at least part of it, is trying to really hype this global warming thing to beat the band. They came out with an article this week saying that that something like 97% of the ice on Greenland had melted last week, and that they found this by satellite measurement. They said it was unprecedented. This is NASA's words, unprecedented. And then if you read all the way down to the end of their press release, their own press release, it says it happens about every 150 years on average, and this event is right on time. But people don't, people usually only read the first paragraph and the headline in the first paragraph. Unprecedented. Well, as near as I can tell, they won't actually give the numbers, but as near as I can tell, and I'd love to, if somebody knows the actual measurement, I'd love to have them contact me, but as near as I can tell, the satellites detected that 1 millimeter of ice had melted on Greenland. What happened is that, and this happens just every once in a while, obviously, but the temperatures had gone above zero, and because of that, 1 millimeter of ice, that's the thickness of your fingernail, had melted. It didn't run off or do any of that. It just melted, and then it refroze again. But they're using that to beat the global warming drum. They had more little things like this last week. It snowed a foot on Mount Baker in northern Washington.
Exactly.
But I think it is so horrible that NASA is saying like that. I have it on my website.
Do you feel the aches and pains of your age? Do you often feel tired, and is your mind often clouded and forgetful?
Well, that's the NUTRIMEDICAL report. We're coming in the middle of it. This is Dr. Deagle's NUTRIMEDICAL report, Earth changes. And we're not going to run the commercials. We're not supposed to. Let me see if I can write it on the wall. That way you're not staring. You don't have to stare at the computer. Use this as just like it's a radio station. Yep. And as soon as they come back on, let me see if I write this on the wall for you. You'll see it. NUTRIMEDICAL report. Dr. Bill Deagle. We're just waiting for the commercial. Here, we'll do this. That way you're not staring at nothing. There it is. We'll back it up a little bit. Here we go. It comes out blurry, but at least you can see it. There we go. There. There. You like that? Let me see if I can adjust the way this looks. We'll try to get it. There it is. But use this just like it is a radio station. You don't need to stare at the screen. I'm just waiting for the commercial to end. Let's see.
Thanks, start program.
Nah. Alrighty then. Alright, we'll just wait and see what's going on. I can actually put pictures maybe now in front. That would be nice. Ugh. Let's see if he's back yet.
Succeeds.
No, he's not. So just use this just like as if this is a radio station, because that's what it really is. And you can go about the house and get some housework done while you're blasting this. And this is the Earth changes. Should put EC there for Earth changes. This is Friday's report, which is today, July 27th, 2012. And it's like a 4-hour loop, so I gotta just catch this right. We'll put EC here for Earth changes. Let's see if he's back. Nope, not back. We're waiting. I know it's not the clearest, but hey, I just thought about that. Instead of just leaving it at the wall, you know, without you seeing anything, at least I have it there.
That's cool. Welcome back, and yeah, these are remarkable stories. Let's go through some more of them. You were just finishing up a very important one here recently.
Well, I was just talking about the scientists shooting holes in the latest NASA Greenland hysteria. I do have that article on my website on iceagenow.info. But you know, it's amazing that the newspapers all pick up this thing that maybe the ice melted 1 millimeter. That is the thickness of your fingernail. Right. And the ice in Greenland is 2 miles thick, and they're worried about that. And yet the media did not pick up the fact that in 2011 sea levels went down by 6 millimeters, and in 2010 sea levels went down by 5 millimeters. And you know, the ocean covers 71% of our planet. How much does Greenland cover? Maybe, I don't know, 2%? I don't even know. But I mean,
yeah,
it's just no comparison.
And you had a really interesting theory as to why this was, and I think your theory makes the most sense, because we know high ultraviolet light will actually do cause kind of a transitory melting. But explain the theory.
Okay, well, you know, when UV hits a glass window, it turns into infrared. In other words, the frequency changes. Well, during the last flare, which came from AR 1540 off the sun, and that was around January 12th, it was noted that after the fact, I mean, we weren't told ahead of time, we weren't told to get indoors, but it was stated after the fact that there was a very strong, tremendously strong UV strobing of the Earth. In other words, the UV from the sun was so intense that it got down to the surface of the Earth and it strobed it, so it was like intermittent. And so I think what happened was that when it got to Greenland, you know, the ice is, when it's solid, when the UV gets to it, it's like going through glass. It turns into infrared, and I think that's what melted it. And then when the strobing stopped, the ice refroze.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
Because they have no other explanation for what happened there. In 4 days, you know, the entire ice sheet melted.
But just, but they make it sound like the entire ice sheet, but it was just the top 1 millimeter. That's the part that's all that melted. It just, but the articles
normally during the summer months, it'll go up to, at the most, 55% of the top of the ice sheet will melt. In this case, it went from 37% to 97% melted in 4 days.
Right.
So this was a very, very unusual event, and it happened at the same time that the UV from the sun strobed the Earth.
That's interesting. The last time that this happened, because it is a cycle, they said it's an approximate 150-year cycle, but I think the last time it happened was about 130 years ago. It would be interesting to see what sunspots were doing at that time.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. That all makes sense, too. Now, in terms of what's happening with Fukushima, there is a war game going on right now in Tokyo. And the U.S. military has made the statement that they expect within 4 years an earthquake will be large enough to evacuate Tokyo. Right now, the radiation levels are high enough that I think they should be evacuating Tokyo as we speak. We need to realize that. Yeah.
I sent you something about Fukushima, Dr. Bill. I don't know if you saw it, but the workers who have been working inside the plant had lead
Yes, we talked about that. They actually, to one of the suppliers, actually, one of the contractors actually was telling their workers to cover their dosimeters shields with lead so they wouldn't show as much radiation.
Isn't that?
Yeah, it's really obscene. And we also have, of course, Stanford University has come out with some information saying that there's only going to be 2,300 deaths from it. It's just obscene, pseudoscience garbage when the amount of radiation is already released as many hundreds of times more than Chernobyl. And we're only at the start of this. And 3 weeks ago, they had a major loss of their uninterruptible power supply. The seal is breaking down, and they're in a rush now trying to remove 1/3 of the fuel rod assemblies, which are the ones of the newest ones in that fuel rod pool. 1,535 rod assemblies in there. If they don't get those out, they're going to go critical and explode. And if they pop, only 10% of them pop. It will release 30 to 100 times the radiation level of the last year. 30 to 100 times radiation means we'll get acute radiation sickness, not just in Japan, but in North America and in Europe. In fact, in the Northern Hemisphere, we're going to get acute radiation illness. Now, it'll present this way. It's going to present with confusion, vertigo, immune system failure, sinus infections, colds, weakness, depression, lack of energy, GI tract bleeds, nose bleeds, all kinds of symptoms that are basically what we call low-level radiation exposure. Now, a lot of the people getting sick in Japan, they tried to say that, I think there were like 500 or 600 people that died, they say, because of exhaustion or stress. No, they died of radiation. The people that were taken away from Fukushima. And these workers, when a lot of them are sent there by the Yakuza, which are the Japanese equivalent of the mafia, to work off their debt, and they don't know what they're doing. There are also now volunteers coming in there that are former TEPCO engineers, but you can't go into this site if you don't have radiation protection. We have our radiation protection kits that you should take, and I'm certain that DARPA and the government has radiation protection suits or equipment, just like they have suits and equipment that the Russians developed for high radiation exposure, or radiation-proof robots so they can operate remotely, but they're not doing it. They're not deploying anything. What we see is, other than a war game, to actually, quote, do a war game to evacuate Tokyo, they're doing nothing. So what I predict is we're going to have a massive radiation release very soon, probably within days, weeks, or months. We're going to have a mass evacuation of Tokyo, and then the real fear will start in North America. Is my food radioactive? Is the fish radioactive? Now, just a month ago, the bluefin tuna in San Diego, 100% were radioactive. 100% of the seaweed off Orange County, California, which is just north of me, is radioactive. The pine needles in Oregon and Washington State are radioactive. We're seeing radioactive milk in the northern states. We're seeing radioactive plutonium in the Czech Republic, picked up after the January 1st earthquake that caused another massive release. So I call them burps. Massive burps of radiation. They're going to continue. And a lot of these are very subtle because they're steam jets that are created when highly radioactive material strikes water, creating radioactive tritium. And these tritiated, superheated steam jets can go for miles out in the ocean floor, miles inland, or connect even with tube trains, these high-speed underground subways in Japan. So Japanese people are getting very angry. There's protests in over 70 countries against Japan. Japan is burning the trash. They did test burns over the last few months. They're now burning 400 to 600 kilometers, miles away from the sites in places where basically they were pristine. They were upwind, and it was basically probably less radiation than California. And they're now burning the rat trash locally, and I think it's a crime against humanity. It's an obscene thing. Yeah, your feedback, Ann and John. Ann and Robert.
Well, they found out when they were cleaning up some of the areas that were outside the perimeter lines that the dust, plutonium dust, they found it on the top of the buildings. So the people that had been sent up there to sweep the top of the buildings were being exposed to, plutonium and other radioactives. So it's a serious, serious problem that the Japanese government does not want to face. This is the first year. In fact, I just heard this. This is the first year that the life expectancy of the Japanese has fallen from first place.
Yeah, and the Japanese, by the way, had the longest life expectancy by, I think, 7 or 8 years over Americans or any other nations. I think the ones that are close to them would be Swiss and the South Koreans and a few others. But the Japanese have really fallen. And, of course, they very much is their diet, their nutraceuticals. A lot of the nutraceuticals are very advanced. Japan needs to clean this thing up. They need to have what I call a tent-like sarcophagus, not a concrete one over it. They need to have a seawall. They need to convert this radioactive radioactivity into solid waste and have it properly stored. And they need to have, if there's possibility of this available, transmutation technology to transmute these radioisotopes, which I'm sure somewhere in Warehouse 13 this exists. Nothing's being done. What's amazing to me is when I've contacted these senators, and I'm in the process this weekend of sending more information to Senator Dianne Feinstein. It's been almost 7 weeks now, and I have nothing back from Senator Wyden's office. They don't want to talk. I guess when they Google Deagle, they said, uh-oh, this guy is either nuts or he is asking questions that we don't want to answer. As I say, every day the intelligence agencies say, who's on Deagle's show, what questions are they asking, and how the hell do they know that? Then they have to fact check, and when they realize, because government agencies don't talk to each other, hopefully out there you will check this, not just in America but around the world, and realize we're not conspiracy theorists, we are conspiracy scientists, and we're analyzing all the cycles that are present in the Earth, the history, geology, etc., and trying to ask you the best questions, if we don't have the answers, that we can do at the time. Take care and take action. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Robert. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Doctor.
Well, that might be the end of it. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to wait and see. There is a tiny bit at the beginning. They were talking about El Hero and how there could be a tsunami. Also, how there's some kind of technology that the Russians have that can cause tsunamis on both the East Coast and the West Coast. They have the technology to do that. Also, they're talking about a meteorite out there that could cause some major problems. And they're talking about Nibiru being out there and coming in. Let's wait and see. He might have some more stuff to talk about. So we'll have to get past this one commercial. And hang in there. Just use this like a radio show. Hold on. Let me see.
It's possible.
Nope. Alright, we're waiting. We're going to wait. And we'll have to see if he's still on there. It sounds like he signed up, but it seems to me he kept going. Alrighty then. We just got to wait and see. Hang in there. Stand by. Oh, water. Everybody stand by. Here, Max, you want some water? Max, did you drink your water? Here. See if the commercial. If not, I might even redo this take. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Not sure. Hang in there. Now, let me see what's going on over here.
Welcome to the Friday show. Of course, I probably think the best hour of the week is the firing line because we answer your questions, and of course because Michelle's here.
You have to say that. I'm your wife. They're not stupid.
No, it's the truth. In fact, that's why I try to get you to stay longer if you can, because so many people have questions now, it's hard to get it all in an hour.
Well, Bill, I'll just keep going. I'll just ignore that. July the 27th, here it is. Our lives are flying by. Well, as you get older, anyone who's getting older knows time flies by as it is, but boy, it's going so fast. I can't believe this is our last show in July.
Right, well, the years become months, the months become weeks, and the weeks become days.
Yeah, well, we're not getting any younger, but we're feeling great, and all these. We're so blessed to have all these wonderful supplements.
And technologies.
I'm so happy. Yes, Bill, let's start with Bob from Kansas today. His wife, you're familiar with Vera.
Okay, that was
her situation.